Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black British Parent Podcast. And today we have an amazing, phenomenal guest, Amani Simpson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate you.
We've had you join our conversations previously, but it's the first time on our podcast, I think.
Yeah.
So it'll be great to catch up and see what you've been up to. But for those of our listeners who have never, seen you before or don't know what you're doing, I mean, I'm sure you're very well known. But for those of us that don't know about you and what you've been up to, please let us know what you're up to and what you do.
Do you know what? I think there's lots of things that I could talk about that I do, but at the core, listen, I'm a child of God. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm a coach. I do all of that stuff. I serve as much as I can, and then there's titles that I kind of fit within of being, a youth coach, a filmmaker, an entrepreneur, campaigner, governor, trustee. Consultant, anything that I can do to kind of help move the needle and to leave the place better than I found it, then that's what I'm up to, basically.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We normally start off with an icebreaker, and the question that we ask everyone is, what's your favorite overall film?
Oh, don't do that. My favorite overall film. As a film lover, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I have one.
Top two? Top three?
Inception's up there.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan. I think Hook is up there with Robin Williams. And then I would also go with... What am I feeling right now? Gotta be Black Panther.
Yeah?
Yeah, gotta be Black Panther.
You're talking about the Marvel?
Yeah, Marvel.
Okay.
For what it did.
Yeah,
for
as profound.
Just,
yeah,
like as a
globally
milestone. Like,
yeah.
I was even starting to watch it again yesterday. I watched a documentary called the number one on the call sheet on Apple with all these black amazing leading actors, and it just reminded me what Black Panther did. So yeah, Black Panther's up there.
Thank you. Those are big movies still. I do like all of them. Yeah, okay. So you talked about being all the titles that you carry, and one of them being a father. Let's talk about that. How's that experience been for you?
It is it's a game changer. I love it. I always say I love being a dad. I'm a girl dad as well, so that's a different dynamic. I'm raising a young queen. I'm raising someone that will navigate the world slightly different to how I've navigated the world, and every day I learn. And I think it's just the gentleness and the example that I'm trying to give her by loving her mum, like my wife, loving her as much as I can so that she can see what a good example of love is, because I'm sure she's going to grow up and someone's son's going to try and take her for an idiot, and I need her to know that this is not standard behavior. This is what love looks like. This is what a family unit looks like. And so I love it. I love just spending time with her and seeing her on a day-to-day develop and learn and conversate and navigate challenges. And also being part of the discipline side, because I think mums really nurture, and then dads are disciplinarians, but not nurturing, if you get what I'm saying.
I think girl dads tend to be a bit softer with their girls though sometimes.
You're right, but I think there is also a requirement for example, today we were doing tidy up time, and she was like, "Daddy, I want to watch." She wanted to watch something on YouTube.
How old is she?
She's 2.
Yeah.
But she was like, "All right, Daddy, I've tidied up what I want to tidy up." And I was like, "No, let's stick to the task. When you finish, we're going to do that." So I think it's teaching her as well, to complete things. And again, not discipline in the way of being the angry parent that you don't want to talk to. It's just, no, we finish stuff that we start. This is how we try and move. This is how we operate. So I love being that balance.
Yeah.
And then also getting the times where she wants to do cuddles, because them cuddles will always get me. Always, trust me.
Make you melt in their hands.
Trust me, man. It's crazy. So.
Yeah. Okay, that's beautiful. I think it's lovely. And congratulations, belated congratulations. Well overdue. But I think it's lovely when we're able to step into parenthood Obviously our platform, Black British Parent, we talk about not necessarily because I think as people get it misconstrued with our platform and the title that we're trying to teach people how to be better parents, and or telling not so much how to be better parents, but more so how to get a certain standard out of their children. And it's not always about that. It's just really about creating a space of understanding and relatability and support generally, because parenting can be challenging at various different stages, from trying to conceive to being pregnant, after birth, toddler stages, teen stages, all of the, and becoming a grandparent, all the stuff in between. How has it been with you and your family in terms of having your parents now become grandparents? What's that experience like, watching your parents go through that?
Do you know what? I know we say it all the time, but like, who are these people? Like, listen, I watched my parents and my in-laws like change completely. And that's amazing. I think that's the
where were you when we were younger?
Like what? Like all of this free reign that you give your grandchildren, right? And she was the first on both sides.
Oh gosh, spoiled bad.
Yeah, so it's just the love is amazing. But I think also it brought me and my parents closer together. I did therapy before I became a dad, in order to like really like prepare myself, because I just didn't feel ready. Yeah, I felt like this is like, what on earth is about to happen to me? And I had so many questions for my parents, and I'm very blessed that they were willing to like,
that's beautiful,
like open up and tell me like what they wish they'd done differently, and to maybe like, hear some of my concerns and some of the things that I guess I was holding against them. And we apologized, and like we spoke it out, and it was like a real like, this is the end of that chapter. And I think for me, it was important to do that, because then my daughter comes into the world, and any other children that come after that, they come in to a completely different dynamic. My parents don't live in London anymore. So, being able to travel up to them as well, it'd be easy for me, if you don't have a relationship, just to be like, I see you whenever. But now it's like intentional FaceTimes.
That's beautiful.
They'll come down on the train, pick her up, take her back. So love it. Like,
I'd love to hear this. That's beautiful. Awesome. So can you keep us like a little bit up to date with what you've been going on with of late?
So man, where do I start? Listen, I've been watching and listening for a number of years. The big thing that I'm working on is I'm currently working towards a tech platform, an app for young people. That we had some pilot funding from the Mayor of London at the end of last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We were able to build a prototype of this app and test it with a small kind of group of young people and their mentors. So excited to talk about that at some point. But yeah, like that's the big vision, being able to like impact at scale through tech, because as much as I love going into schools and doing workshops and doing programs, that's only a handful of young people at a time, and we switch off and they go back into their worlds, whereas tech enables us to like literally have a 24/7 impact, and to scale it nationally, globally, like anything's possible. In terms of specific projects that I guess I can talk about, a couple of years ago I released a short film called Save Me. So that was I wouldn't call it a follow-up to my film Amani, but I guess seeing the success that first short film had, I was just like, doing 1 million views in 4 days and having over 4 million people watch this film now. Like that is, like, who would have ever thought that was possible years ago, right? This is a crowdfunded short film. And so Save Me came about, and it came in lockdown, and I co-designed it with some young people, co-wrote it with young people from Enfield, and it was all about helping to raise awareness about grooming exploitation, and really with like a call to action for the community to step up and be active bystanders, and just to see our young people as children, and to like, what would you do if this whole "it takes a village to raise a child"? What are we really about? Are we really going to do that? So that's been working. We've got some partnerships with Brent Council, the Children's Society, where we go into SCND provisions and we talk about exploitation in partnership with them. Been up and down the country with it as well. We're about to do a big event in the summer with the BFI around it as well.
Awesome.
So that's
Keep
one
us
project.
posted about that too.
100%. And then the Amani project, which I'm a patron of, which is a project with Goldman Sachs and Hogan Lovells and Bentivity. which is a 6-month employability program where we target specifically Black and Black mixed race teenagers who are in need of a second chance. And that could be anything from being kicked out of school to underachieving in education, to coming out of jail, to being in care. It's just about giving them a sense of hope, confidence, access. And over 6 months, we just journey with them. We just, take them on a program, meet them every 2 weeks in the city, buy them a laptop, give them a suit, and just, let them know that it may not be Goldman on Hogan levels that you want to work at, but there's more to this life thing than ends and maybe some of the limiting beliefs that you've grown up with. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
We can get to that. Let's get back to your project that you're doing with supporting young Black and Black mixed children. How did that come about? What made that be a reality? Because I know you've been working as a mentor and a coach for young people for a while. Yeah. How did you get to this place to be able to get that kind of funding and get this project going?
I think you need angels and mentors and coaches in this life, and one of those people has been someone called Lord Mike Hastings, who I met a number of years ago and became like an uncle and a patron for my organization. And one day during the kind of George Floyd era, he invited me to breakfast and we were just catching up, and he was just like, what are you doing after? I was like, nothing. And he's one of those kind of the older generation that just kind of say, go and tell your story, come and do this. Like, he got stabbed. And sometimes you're like, why are you doing that? But this time, I'm very grateful that he did, because he put me on a Zoom call with leaders from GS and Hogan Levels. And I told my story, and then they went away and they reflected and they're like, listen, you've got an amazing story of transformation. We want to do something, but we don't know what we want to do. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on what we could create. And I just said, listen, I'm not here for the tokenism, I'll be honest. I understand everyone's doing soul searching right now, but let's do something meaningful. And we spoke to the community. We did a number of focus groups with young people, leaders, and said, what do you guys need? And it was we don't need another graduate program. There's a few of those. We need something that's aimed at those that are kind of the furthest away from the job market. And then that's what we went on to create, basically. And this is our 4th year, about to start again in a couple of weeks. We've just done our best to continue serving the mission, which is to move the needle individually for those young people, those 25 to 30 that we support every year, and ensuring that they have positive outcomes, they have a positive experience, and that their life is different based on the interaction that we have.
What I want to get into, I think, is the impact that it has on young people. Because it's one thing, and I'm not trying to be weird about it, but it's this idea that you doing. How do you know that what you're doing is impacting? I mean, you know, because you know your community and you know what they need. Yeah. But what has been, not feedback, but the results of what you're doing.
I think that's a great and very valid question. Bottom line is there's lots of things that sound like they're making an impact, but for us, we do a before survey with the young people based on where they're at, and we do an after. We do actually do a middle one, but we also do an after one. And the results over the last couple of years have been really clear in terms of the increase in confidence that somebody has, one of the young people has, the outcomes that they have in terms of, when I met you, I was out of employment. I was out of college, and by the time I finished your program, I'm in employment or I've gone back to college. Even just down to, when I say confidence, I'm not even just talking about themselves. I'm even just kind of existing in spaces outside of their own. The thing about these programs is that sometimes you don't always have, even though we do have a really good cohort of Black mentors from both organizations, sometimes the young people are going to interact with people that are not from their ethnic background. Yeah. And even when you see that, I always laugh, you see the man them come in the first couple of weeks, and before we give them their suits and stuff, and they've got their hoods on, they've got their trousers dropped, and you've got this really senior corporate lawyer who initially is a bit what am I doing here? And then what we try to do, especially with the help of Mentivity, is we just break the ice. And we're just like, guys, you're both humans. You both have got stories. You both have got things that you're navigating in this life. Like, just strip it all back. And you just see over the months and the, essentially the 6 months that they're working together, you see how the barriers just break. And then it's just like, I'm looking forward to seeing this person next week.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful essence of it. It's these kind of professional lawyers, bankers. Like, we've had like one of the most senior people in the law firm is a regular mentor on and he will come every couple of weeks to come and work with the young people, and then he'll come and do extra time, and I keep reminding the young people, not that it's just about status, but this is like number 2 or number 3 in this law firm in the UK. In fact, I think it's actually globally.
Gosh, yeah.
And you're just talking to him like it's nothing, and that should show you that there's humans at every level. And the reason he does it is because he didn't necessarily come from privilege, but he's worked his way up, and he spent a season of his life where it was tough and he didn't believe in himself. And so now where he's in a position to give back, he wants to support. And there's millions of people like that in the world. And so I think that's the beautiful thing. It's just stripping away, it's only for black kids, or it's only for this, or I'm giving back. It's just, I'm just paying it forward. I'm just
and opening, expanding minds.
Yeah, exactly. On both sides of the table.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. So we mentioned before briefly that you're a filmmaker, and your filmmaking experience. How did you get into doing it? And I don't know, because I'm a little bit skeptical about asking about these questions about your experience of being injured, stabbed. Yeah. It's a bit of a funny, touchy sort of subject, especially nowadays. But as much as you're allowed or want to feel comfortable talking about it, what is it that helped you and got into that?
I appreciate that. I'm good speaking about it. I've done therapy and I speak about it all the time. But I always give a trigger warning for the audience, because even though I'm good with it, and it's not.
And I think I'm trying to be mindful, because I don't want you to have to always be talking about it. Do you get what I'm saying to you? But
it was a massive tipping point for me. That it could have gone the other way. Very easily could have just gone and been in a dark spiral of revenge and all of this stuff. But I chose the light path, and it wasn't easy initially, but it's turned out for good. So, I think the filmmaking side, obviously my film Amani is about me getting stabbed, and it's quite a deep film. I don't show it as much anymore, not only because it's been successful online, but just because I think now with a little bit of maturity, I don't push for people to go and watch it, because it's quite traumatizing. I think at that time, for whatever reason, you could say that people needed to watch it to maybe have a different opinion of some of the victims of knife crime. But I think the conversation has moved forward, not only just because of my film, but just generally because of
the dialogue
that's happened around violence affecting young people. What I would say is that process was like a complete and utter godsend. Like, I can't describe it any other way. So Javan Wade, who plays me, plays Shiro in Shiro's Story, is a Hollywood actor now. He played Cyborg in DC Comics, Doom Patrol. He's in Bel Air. He's in The First Purge. He's in loads of things. He lives in, the States now. He's one of my brothers still to this day. And I met him before he did his first movie. And so, again, we just connected and built a brotherhood really quickly in a time where you would imagine, I'm about to go and do Hollywood, that's it. Like, I'm going to keep certain friends and my number's going to change. You'd imagine that. But we just stayed in touch. And then when he came back to the UK, we sat down for breakfast, and he said, look, I want to tell stories about people battling their faith. And I'd never been a filmmaker. Like, I would say that I've had experience of like making content and filming events and filming things and maybe being behind the camera, but I never ever put like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a movie. That wasn't ever my thinking. So I initially just told him the story, and he then came back with the spoken word. And then again, him and his business partner Purcell, they were really busy with loads of other things, building the wall of entertainment at the time, or the wall of comedy. And then I just remember saying, bro, like, you're about to move to America. You've just done Shiro's Story 1 and 2. You're about to move to America. And I remember P was like, if we don't do this film now, it's not going to happen. And sometimes just that, when your back's against the wall and you've got the right people around you, anything's possible. And yeah, I just remember saying, lads, like, what do we need? And he just said, we kind of need like a producer, a project manager. And I'd done that before in events. And so I just put my skills, just transferred them from that into that. And then again, godsend, we had a production team called Little Drops Production, run by Richard Catter, who came on board like in a crazy way, which is a whole podcast in itself. And they basically fronted the cost of the film, which is unheard of. You know, they basically were, you know, if I'm being real, they didn't pay some of their team for months waiting for us because we were crowdfunding at the same time.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't like a beef thing, like, oh, we're not releasing. It was like, we believe in you. Yes, there's stress, but we believe in you. And then when it was released, we did, I think actually, no, Hogan Lovells, they gave us £7,000 to finish the crowdfund, again, through the link with Uncle Michael, Lord Hastings. And yeah, it blew up, it went viral, and it changed my life. And so I think from there, like that first initial like link into film and social impact filmmaking specifically made me say, no, like I need to do this. I need to keep using this
as a medium
to tell stories, to challenge. And then Enfield Council reached out to me about Save Me, or about the concept of making a short film. In fact, they wanted to make a training DVD, and I upsold them for a short film.
Well done, Heavy.
I'm proud of that because, I don't know if training DVD would have landed in this day and age. But yeah, they believed in me because of the success of that film. And now I sit on a board of a faith-based media company that is funded by the Sainsbury's family. So, now I'm a commissioner of content and, shows and films. And so, again, it's a complete godsend. And then I've had a number of different people download things to me that's just like, you're going to tell other people's stories. Yeah. And so listen, I just walk in obedience. Like whatever God wants me to do on this time on my earth, with this second chance of life that I've got since my stabbing, like that's what I'm here to do. Do you know what I mean?
And it all ties into everything because, again, the project you're doing with Goldman Sachs and Mentivity is offering second chances for 100%. People, and that's just so beautiful. It's just all full circle.
It's all linked in, man. So as I said, I try not to sway out of the stuff that I think I've been asked to do. And I have great advisors, I've got mentors, I've got coaches, I've got my core circle of people that if at any time I feel like I'm swaying, and there was a project I was working on, even this week, I had to kind of just say, listen, this isn't in alignment with what I'm on right now. And unfortunately, I have to kind of step down, like I can't do this because I just don't have the bandwidth for things that potentially waste your time or will draw you away. Like there's just too many things, and this is lives that we're dealing with. So I think I've just really learned how to like lock in and laser focus, keep things as lean as possible, and then therefore kind of have that agility basically.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. That was a very tough, weird question from Siarts, but you answered it perfectly and beautifully. Speaking of filmmaking and films, we've recently, I don't know when this is going to come out, this episode, but recently there was a show that's come out, a series called Adolescence. It's created such a buzz in conversation. The irony that I have with it, I don't know if there's a question or a statement I'm asking you or whatever, but the irony I have around it is that it's as much as it's much needed, it almost feels like it's a bit too late to somewhat degree for many people that have been working or being community-led in organizations and stuff like that. A lot of the perspective could be like, well, that's not new news, and what difference is this making other than people just being on a hype and a buzz? What do you say about that in terms of this work? I think it was a brilliant series.
I think it was brilliant as well. I think
beautifully done as well.
As a filmmaker, I was just like in awe of the shots, of the acting, of the lighting, of the just everything around it was well done. I think the subject matter, the lens that they put it through, in terms of it being the son, and you kind of knew from the jump that he'd done it. Even though it was kind of, I don't want to spoil it.
For anyone, but
But essentially, like you see it in the trailer, you heard it in the trailer, what he's done, and But in terms of how that affects or impacts those that are doing the work on a day-to-day basis, I can understand the frustration because the work that we do serving young people in the community, going into schools, is sometimes really thankless. And I think that's the challenge sometimes, is that as much as we're not doing it for
To get the
praise
thanks, yeah.
and to get thanks, like you equally want to be acknowledged
for the
for
work
what you're
you're
doing.
putting
I
in.
think that's a
Yeah,
human
yeah.
thing, right? But I think at the core of it, if something is created that is going to amplify the message in a way that adolescence has done, where now the Prime Minister of the country is calling an emergency kind of task force and, you know, giving funding for this thing to be in schools, etc. As I said, I understand the frustrations, but I think it's also an opportunity, because I think, as we were talking offline before, like, you know, teachers have a very limited bandwidth. And so even though, you know, funny, I'm actually an ambassador for the charity that's going to be using, or part of the charity that's going to be pushing it out into schools into film. It's like it's run by the BFI, and they do like lots of free school resources around
great.
film.
Yeah.
And so again, it's something that you could say, oh, the institutions come and they've got this big contract or this big, you know, green light. And as I said, I can understand why people will be annoyed about that. But I guess if you take a step back and say, like, at the core of it, isn't about trying to save our children, isn't about trying to raise awareness. And as I said, I think that teachers have a really small bandwidth. So there will be a limitation to that initial knee-jerk reaction. And people will be required to kind of come in and give that lived experience and give that deeper dive. But I think, as I said, I can understand why people would be frustrated about how it's been perceived, and suddenly like all of their work almost feels obsolete at times, or I've been talking about this for time, why am I not included in the conversation? So I can understand that.
Yeah. I think definitely it's brought. I don't know if I can say this or I should say this, but the storyline is about the misogyny, I guess, and the manosphere to somewhat degree, and how that impacts young people, which again brings back to your conversation, the work that you're doing with young people in terms of grooming and these kinds of things. The interesting thing though is how the controversies now become a racial one in that conversation, because it was a white family, a white boy that done stabbings, and that makes it, I think, a bit more challenging as well, that kind of conversation, and how it impacts everybody, especially with young people, because now these things aren't necessarily black issues; they're everybody's issues, everybody's community's issues.
Which I hear, but you know, I think statistically, it's undeniable that white kids are more involved in knife crime outside of London.
Yeah,
like that's just a fact. Like we are a small percentage in this country, and don't get me wrong, when you go into like major cities like London, you know, like imagine Birmingham and other places, like I'm sure, like, you know, I don't like using the word minority ethnic because we're global, we're major,
majorities,
we're majority, right? But yeah, in these settings, we are a minority. And so when you then kind of talk about how it affects our community, yes, it is disproportionate in certain spaces, but life crime has been happening for centuries. From, you look at like Peaky Blinders, and from back then, like people have been on stabbing people for many, many years.
Yeah.
So I think it's about widening the scope of who we say could potentially be groomed, who could potentially be up for exploitation, who could be manipulated with propaganda around, masculinity and how, and misogyny and all of these different things about how we talk and engage with women. We have to widen the scope and ensure that there is no child, there's no stone left unturned when it comes to like talking about keeping our young people safe and helping them to safely transition into adulthood.
Yeah.
Everyone can be affected by this because the internet 100%. Is nothing to do with race.
And vulnerability is vulnerability. It's not race-based, it's not gender-based, it's vulnerability is vulnerability.
You know what I mean?
I appreciate that. That was beautifully and eloquently said. I mean, I don't expect any less. So there's something intentional about the way you show up for young people. Mm-hmm. What do you think today's youth are really craving that society keeps overlooking?
Ooh, there's cliche things I can say, but I'll start there. And then I'll see what comes at the end of that. I think the big thing is that, you know, we can't overlook what austerity has done to youth services. Can't overlook that. Decades worth of cuts have just meant that, youth services are not what they were before. Family support is not what it was before. So, where we're seeing increases in certain areas around violence or around unemployment, nearly 1 million young people are unemployed right now. Like, that has to come from somewhere. That's a systemic thing, right? I think at a core, basically, I think that this idea of it takes a village to raise a child is more so a theory than an actual practice.
Yeah, I hear you.
And again, I go back to the message of the film that I made. It was very much, yes, we're going to see these two kids go through their challenges and see exploitation play out and grooming, but what are we going to do about that? When we see kids walking down the road during the daytime, gone are the days now of someone saying, "What are you doing out of school?" Gone are the days of us maybe kind of taking responsibility for other people's children. Now, I understand that children can sometimes be quite bright with how they respond, and obviously put certain people a little bit, it puts someone off to like maybe get involved, especially with how young people might respond to people kind of challenging them in public. I can understand that, but I definitely think work needs to be done from an older generation, like my parents and older, to our generation, to the ones below, that we kind of begin to just be bridges and be aware and try and support and try and take someone underneath our wing and try and offer an encouraging word. And that really like stepping up for the young people in our community. But it's easier said than done. I know people talk about this all the time, but I think it is really now just a joint up approach. And it cannot just be our government needs to do this. It needs to be consortiums of people. Not even just because I've done work with the Mayor of London, but I like the idea of this My Ends things that they've got, that, where different communities are bringing together community groups that will get funding from central government, and they will do something specifically in hotspot areas that is like really led by community. That to me is an answer. Of course, time will tell how that scales. But things like that, it's like, how do we come together and create consortiums that help people feel safe, wanted, and like they can go on to thrive, basically.
I like that. I guess when I'm hearing what you're saying, and in terms of the consortiums, back in the days, like, it kind of all stems from your household. Like when you're raised in nurtured in a household and a extended family where you are taught to respect your elders, you're taught to respect each other, and the elders behave in a way that's to be respected, because it's hard to now tell young people to respect your elders and the elders ain't acting like elders. Do you get what I mean?
Respect is earned.
Right?
So it's always been earned,
right?
But back in the day, fear was different.
Do you understand? And I remember back in the days, I've said this bare times on podcasts with different guests, like, you mind your P's and Q's on the bus, because you don't know whose friends, aunties, cousins, brethren who knows your mum will get to tell your mum before you reach home. So, but we don't necessarily have that so much. Hey family, we hope you're enjoying the show. If you want to stay up to date with all things Black British Parent, we've got the perfect way for you to do just that. Join our mailing list and be the first to know about new episodes, exciting news, and upcoming events. It's super easy to sign up. Just head over to our website and into your email. Don't miss out on the latest from Black British Parent. Join our community today. Now, back to the show.
My hope is that there is minds and organizations and people that are coming together to try and work out a way for us to even just move the needle for like we start with one and then you build out and then you like you know what I mean, like that's all we can do. That's all we can do. Like, each of us have platforms. You got a platform, I've got a platform, there's loads of other people with platforms. We can give hope, information, support where possible, and I think we can keep campaigning government and we can keep trying to put our resources together. And it's just doing all of those things in order to try and move the needle. But the bottom line is that it starts internally. Even with all of those odds, you can choose to try and swim upstream instead of just going with the current. I think that's that kind of self-determination that gives someone hope and helps them push through against the odds, really. you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. So you were talking about this consortium and this, I keep thinking, my mind's on that. So what does being a visionary mean to you, especially in the context of our community, or community?
I think visionary in general, like, it's just seeing the future, how you in a different light, you know, like I look years into the future and I think about, as I said, like, how does tech move the needle for our young people? Not just even through job opportunities and them understanding how to use technology so they're not being left behind by the rest of the world that is using AI and other kind of tech, but also how does it become something that enables them to have better outcomes and can scale positive messages. I look at the just certain narratives that are permeating within youth culture. And for me, they're quite destructive. And I'm sure many other people would agree with that in terms of what our young people grow up and think is cool and think how they should carry themselves. How do you begin to counteract that without becoming too preachy to the point where they almost, take it on for themselves and share it themselves as like, this is what I want to be on. I think there was a few years ago where like entrepreneurship culture did that a little bit, where everyone was like, no, I want to be my own boss. Like, I remember when I was like 18 and it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad that everyone was reading, and I'm gonna have my cash flow quadrant and I'm not gonna, and all of that stuff. And I get it.
Yeah.
It gave us hope, but there has to be something else.
That comes
so,
with it.
So I think that's it for me.
Yeah.
My vision, that I feel like my God-given vision is how do we at scale begin to give people options as to what they do in the world. So when they're growing up in ends, they don't just automatically see drug dealing and robbing people and carrying knives and wearing all black or grey or whatever as the option because this is where I'm from. Because there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that grew up in that same block or that same area that went on and did something else. And how do we bring those stories like into their view as early as possible so that they know that this is not the only way.
Yeah, I hear you.
And that's vision for me, you know? And then it's about collaboration, then it's about everyone playing their position, and then it's about trying to fight back against the challenges that will come from that, you know, the systemic things about, you know, us being underfunded and stuff like that, and hopefully people putting the resources in from the community. But bottom line is, listen, you got to make your own table. Why we keep asking for seats at tables that don't want us?
100%.
There's
Don't
times
kick
for that,
down the door.
But listen. Listen. Daniel Kaluuya said something that lives with me. He says they keep calling us, ethnic minorities. Like, I'm major, bro. I'm major. Like, we are a global majority. I'm not taking nothing minor. You know, and that to me has stayed with me. Like, that is a powerful thing, and it's not about being against anybody else.
No,
it's just I love my people. I love what we stand for. We have to help our youths, and in the process of helping our youths, there's other kids that are going to come with that, because disadvantage is nothing to do with color. It's just disadvantage. You know what I'm saying? So
knowing your worth and knowing your value,
100%.
knowing your place and your purpose.
You get me?
100%. So, we just keeps leading on to the next things I want to say. I love it. Healing and transformation is not linear. How do you keep yourself grounded when old wounds resurface?
Oh, that's a good question. So this week has been tough. I think when you're still, sometimes like that shadow voice, that dark voice in your mind can like have you like reflecting and you know, obviously I was ill this week, and so that's a quick way when your guard's down, your immune system's a bit low.
Vulnerability is a bit different.
It's different. you're not firing on all cylinders, and habits and routines are in place. You get me? So I think this week I've had to tap into the toolkit that I've got. So I had a call with my coach a couple of days ago, who I speak to every 2 weeks. And again, had a really powerful call where, you know, he asked me certain questions, and it's almost like performance, I guess. It's like ensuring that I am in the best place to lead and to execute on the things that I need to do. Faith is also really key. So, you know, tapping into my word, ensuring that, you know, I spend time with God. Like, I think sometimes you can spend so much time on the grind, and I always use this metaphor, like it's like you spend so much time on the battlefield that you don't go back to the commander and get like new instructions because you're just so used to like, I'm going, but you don't realize the plans maybe changed, or you need a bit of a regroup and just ensuring that I'm going in the right direction. So I had to do that this week. And then I think also like journaling is really important as well.
You said that.
Like, I love journaling. I don't do it all the time, but I do it when I need to.
But I love it because it's usually quite a feminine thing to hear people talking about. But having a daddy talk about
I love
it.
Journaling for me, I do it in two ways. Like, so either I'll put something on my iPad and I'll write it out on the pen, or I'll record something.
And speak it out.
And I'll speak it out. Like, my therapist suggested a little while ago, like, why don't you just do like a video vlog? And I've done that a few times where I'll just talk and just like have the camera on.
Love to hear this.
And just like download. And it's just, but then I think the other thing that was really important is not just to stay in that negative thought process, is also to link in the gratitude as well. And what I found yesterday when I was doing it, and over the last couple of days, is that the list of like negatives, if you want to call it that, or things that you're struggling with, or things that are trying to like teeth your joy or whatever, they're a lot shorter than the things that you're grateful for. It's a lot shorter. Sometimes like you focus so much on that short little list of 5 or 6 things, and then you're constantly writing because when you're doing gratitude, because then you're like, actually, I'm grateful for the sun, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for the fact that I reached this age, I'm grateful that I'm driving my car, I'm grateful that I don't have a long-term illness, or like it could be absolutely anything, and you can keep going. And I think that those little tool kits, things that I can kind of draw for,
helps you keep focused. Yeah.
So it's just drawing for everything, and sometimes it's just, listen, if I need to cry as a human, like I always say, like, we've got tear ducts. If I just need to just,
they're there for a purpose.
Trust me. I watched something this week, and as I said, it was emotional, and I was just like, like 1-2 little tears dropped, and I was just like, that's it. I needed that. It's cathartic. I needed that feeling, and then we move again. If I don't have those moments of grounding, then constantly you're on to something else, and it's not human, man. Like we put too much pressure on ourselves. So
yes, I love it. People see the impact, the applause, the viral moments, but what does the unseen work look like to you? You kind of just briefly touched on that.
I think I did. I think it's the early mornings and the late nights where I can. I'm a 5 a.m. starter. In lockdown, I learned about the 5 a.m. club and waking up early and getting those extra hours on the world, especially when you've got loads of things going on. So where I can, obviously with a 2-year-old, is not always...
I was about to say, parenthood ain't easy, man.
It's not always doable. But where I have done it, it gives me an edge, 100%. I feel the difference, and I know when I haven't been in a season of waking up early. Do you know what? I think it's also those regular check-ins with those that I've got an advisory council. I've got like senior leaders chaired by Lord Hastings, and people that have just been on this journey with me for a while that offer different perspectives, senior people that I will sit down with and say, listen, like, I've got this idea. What do you think? And they will critique it, challenge it, encourage it, whatever's needed in order to help it move forward. And so I'm not alone on this journey. And I always say, like, you pray like it's up to God and you work like it's up to you. So I tap in with my creator. Like, I always walk with, like, the source, you get what I'm saying, on a day-to-day basis. And then everything else is about, like, me working through it, because I always say, like, you can pray, and there's lots of people that, and it's no judgment, but there's lots of people that are just on like the praying thing and the praying fast and all of that, which is cool and is very, very needed, it's biblical, but the work bit is missing. And I always say, like, I use this analogy: if I'm running for a train and I've woken up late and I've got 20 minutes to run for the train, am I willing to brush my teeth in the car, do a little wash with the rag as I'm running out, but I need to get that train? If I'm not willing to do all of that, then even if God held that train because I've been praying, I'm never going to make it anyway. So that's my mentality. It's like, I will do the work and I know that you will do what's needed. And it's happened so many times in my life. And so, yeah, those are the things that happen behind the scenes.
I love that analogy. Very simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
So when you think about legacy, especially as a African Caribbean man living in Britain, Black British, if you want to call it that, working with the youth, with young people, what do you hope people say you help shift?
Firstly, I think it's about what my family say. My daughter and future children, that are like, yeah, dad was here, he loved us, he showed love to mum, he gave us a good example, because that's my first responsibility. My wife, obviously, not saying that she's not my first responsibility, because I always say like children shouldn't come before your wife, so that she knows that we still have date nights, that, I'm still encouraging her, I still listen to her when she wants to vent out and all of that stuff. That for me is like the core of it, like, and home, my parents, my siblings, all of that, like my friends, like that is the core. As long as my people, them, like they know that I've been solid, I've been there, I've helped, I've listened, that's it. Everything else, I think, is a nice to have, and I'll do that with integrity. I want to move the needle for young people in the sense of giving them options and shifting culture and creating things that live longer than me, and things that can be passed on to them, and being an example. I think role model is a term that's used a lot, but like a real model, like someone that's just like, listen, I'm not gonna get it right all the time.
Yes.
But I'm here to show you like what I do, and take what you want to take and leave what you don't. I think that's how I would look at it. But ultimately, when I die and I get to heaven, which is what I believe, and I get to that gate and see whatever this like God structure is, like, people say Father God, lots of people have different views of what God is. I just want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. You done well. Get a little fist bump, have a little sit down, this is your life. Done well, reflect, let the tear them drop, you know what I mean? And then be like, yeah, done well. But I think that's legacy. Everything else, like in years to come, they'll remember bits about what I've done.
Yeah.
But my people, my family and that, like, they will know me.
I hear that. And you don't do it for those kinds of things. But I would imagine, though, that the many people that you've touched, you will always be remembered for the opportunities and the time and space that you've shared with them.
I appreciate that. Yeah, listen, I'm constantly humbled by what people say about like kind of what we've created or how I've impacted them. But I say it like, it can't be about ego, and I'm always saying 100%. That to people that want to serve. Like
negative ego,
yeah,
anyway,
like negative ego.
Everyone has ego, but
as I said, I think there's a sense of happiness or pride or a
you
boost
feel
that
good,
you get.
yeah,
like when you hear from somebody, but it can't be like you are expecting that when you go into a room. And I've had to challenge that in my early days of serving in the community, and when the film came out, because that was very focused on me.
But then you was much younger then as well.
100%.
So, yeah.
But it happened at a very good time in my life, where that's at the core of that built me. I built from there. Do you get what I'm saying? And so, yeah, as you said, that negative ego is where we see people destroy this thing that's been built, and they start making silly choices. And I'm only human, but I would like to say I've got the right safeguards around me, that if things start to wane in certain areas, that I get picked up. And as I said offline, you got to be a little bit scared of your wife, boy. Like my wife, if she needs to cuss me out,
go in there. That's good. I like to hear it. Still,
if my wife needs to cuss me out, she will cuss me out, and that's important. You know what I'm saying? I can't have someone that is just like, yeah, whatever you say, dear, like that doesn't work. Like it's got to be respect and that I'm doing things the way that I started out as much as possible. So
cool.
Yeah.
So what's next for Amani, the visionary, the storyteller, the builder?
Yeah, the app. The app's the next thing. The app's the next thing. I mean, look, we're trying to do something innovative. For my research, a global first. Something that once we get the packaging right, should sell itself, should scale quite organically, and should make a massive impact in the lives of our young people, but equally young people from all backgrounds. So I'm going to do that with integrity. I'm going to do that to the best of my ability, bring that to life, and then just run it for as long as I can until it needs to be handed over to someone else, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that next. That's the next thing, and then I guess in and around that, there's the project. So as I said before, the Amani project is starting again in a few months. So we're about to start recruitment, depending on when this comes out, in the next couple of weeks. And so that's cool. Save Me, as I said, is going to be 2 years in July. So we've got
How can people get to see that?
Save Me's on YouTube.
Already? It's on YouTube.
Save Me's on YouTube. If you search Save Me short film, it's on the Enfield Council YouTube channel.
We'll probably put a link in our caption for this as well.
Hopefully Arsenal win the Champions League as well. I had to say that on camera. It's all right. Today was a very strategic. I'm loving the red, black, and green though. Still, so today was a strategic wear. So hopefully by the time I watch this, Arsenal have won the Champions League.
Come try bring his politics onto our podcast.
Man, you know what I'm saying? It's important. That's it. I got to speak it into existence. But all of that, all jokes aside, like I'm just here to keep learning, to keep trying to serve to the best of my ability, keep loving, keep being obedient. That's it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And finally, last thing, do you have a message for our Black British parent listeners?
Actually look at the camera. At the end of my film, Save Me, there's a message that comes on the screen and it says, yes, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a community to raise a generation. And so I ask everyone that's listening, instead of maybe sharing things in WhatsApp groups and talking about children that might be getting up to certain things that we don't agree with, is what can we do as a community in order to raise our children to be the best versions of themselves. I'd imagine because you're already subscribed to places like this that you're seeking answers, but there's so much more that we could do for our youth, listening, loving, nurturing them, and sometimes even that vulnerability that I think is missing from the older generation, just talking about some of the challenges that they had growing up. Equally, that being said, I know that parents are doing their best or doing what they know. So I think it's just continuing to listen to places like you and other thought leaders. We've got so much information online now about how we can improve our parenting and our care for the next generation. So just keep learning, stay curious and actually put into action the stuff that you hear about and do what you say. That's it.
Thank you so much, Amani. It's always a pleasure sharing time and space with you. Please let our listeners know how they can get in touch. Main places are Instagram, Amani.Simpson, LinkedIn, Amani Simpson, my website's AmaniSimpson.com, and my youth organisation is called Aviard, which is AVIARD, and it's aviard.co.uk. So, looking forward to connecting, and God bless. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. And guys, thank you again for listening to another episode. Until next time, take care.